Good day, everyone. You are welcome to class today. This course is Every Student a Musician, ESM 101 Piano. I am your facilitator, and my name is Emmanuel Edet Adwa. On ESM 101 Piano today, we will be looking at Lecture 1, titled Introduction to Sound. I hope you will enjoy the class. So, ESM 101, Introduction to Sound. At the end of this class, you should be able to define sound. You should be able to highlight and explain the properties of sounds. You should be able to explain the differences between pitched and unpitched sound. So let's proceed to the class. Introduction to sound. Introduction to sound. What is sound? A sound is any vibration traveling through the air or other medium, which can be heard when it reaches a person's ear. So sound waves may be longitudinal or mechanical. When we say longitudinal, we mean that it oscillates, or its oscillation is parallel to propagation. When we say it is mechanical, it means that it requires a medium to travel through. Now let's look at the speed of sound. The speed of sound. Density and temperature affect how fast sound will travel through a medium. So sound travels fastest in solids, then liquids, and more slowly in gases, which means in the three states of matter, that is solid, liquid, and gases, sound travels fastest in solid, then fast in liquid, then very slow in gases. Then sound travels faster in warmer air than cold air. Now let's look at how sound is created. When an object vibrates, it creates sounds. And when these sounds are created, they could be loud, they could be deep or long, they could be short or high-pitched. Sounds can be pure, gravely, distorted, sweet, or soft. So any sound your ear can hear is created by the mechanical back and forth motion of an object. So for sound to be propagated, it needs objects, it needs a medium, and it is created by the mechanical back and front motion of that medium or object. Now, how is sound heard? Let's look at how sound is heard. Sound waves are funneled by the pinna in the ear canal. The tympanic membrane is then vibrated like a drum by the compressional sound waves. Tiny bones, also called ossicles, transfer the wave motion of a soft to a soft fluid-filled organ in the inner ear. Let's look at what happens in the inner ear. Now, In the inner ear, the spiral-shaped cochlea has tiny hair-shaped cells inside that transfer the mechanical energy, that's the back and front motion of the wave, into electrical energy, that's nerve impulses. Then your brain interprets different tones or pitches depending on which cells in the cochlea are moved by the sound passing through the fluid. Now, high frequencies stimulate the base, while low pitches makes the air of the apex to vibrate. Now, let's look at ears and balance. Now, as your body moves, air cells in the semicircular canals are bent over when the fluid inside flows past them. Three canals oriented in three-dimensional planes, that's the yaw, the pitch, and the roll. These three canals work hand in hand to achieve the balancing in sound when it gets to the ear. Now let's look at the limits of human hearing. There's something we call ultrasonic waves, and this wave, the frequency of this wave is between 20,000 plus hertz. That's 20,000 plus hertz. So ultrasonic waves have frequencies above what humans can hear. And we also have infrasonic waves, which is between 0 to 20 hertz. And infrasonic waves have frequencies below what human can hear. Now, the human hearing is between 20 to 20,000 hertz. That is the sound that humans can hear. The frequency of between 20 to 20,000 hertz. Now, other animals may have higher. For example, dog has between 50 to 45,000 hertz. Then cats can also have between 40 to 65,000 hertz. So, but the limit of the human hearing is 20 to 20,000 hertz. Now let's look at decibels and sound volumes. Decibels and sound volume. Audible sound energy is measured in decibels. So now the different levels measured in decibels of some activities have been outlined there for us. Like, for example, we have jet engine. Jet engine takes off at 140 decibels. The jackhammer, when thrust into the ground, has about 120 decibels. Now, most of these sounds can cause damage to the ear. Now, hearing damage depends on the loudness of the sound, that's the sound amplitude. It also depends on the pitch of the sound, that is the sound frequency. It can also depend on the duration of exposure to the sound. When we mean duration of exposure, how long do you expose yourself to the sound? It can damage the ear. Now, let's look at differences between sound and noise. Differences between sound and noise. Sound is pleasant to hear, while noise is unpleasant to hear. You also have sound having a constant pitch. Sound has a constant pitch, while noise have varying pitch. Sound have regular periodic motion, while noise have no regular periodic motion. Sound produces meaningful communication and it is measured with the unit of hours, while noise produces meaningless communication and it is measured in decibel. These are the differences between sound and noise. Now let's proceed further to look at properties of sound. The properties of sound, we have pitch, amplitude, timbre, duration, and speed. Now let's pick them one after the other as we proceed. Now, what is pitch? Pitch is a quality that enables us to judge sounds as being higher or lower. A high-pitched sound causes molecules to rapidly oscillate, while a low-pitched sound causes slower oscillation. Now, for example, you must have heard of tonic sulfur notes in music before. So we have do, for example, let me run the scale, a particular scale on a key. So if we have do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do. Now, the first note is much lower. It's lower than the second, than the last note. That we have do, 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 do. So those two pitches, they may be the same notes, but one is lower and the other one is higher. So, and they will not have the same frequency because the pitch is different. Also, another property of sound is amplitude and is also called dynamics. So amplitude of a sound wave determines its relative loudness. In music, the loudness of a note is called its dynamic level. Higher amplitudes correspond with louder note sounds, while shorter amplitudes correspond with quieter sounds. Now, when we talk about amplitude, we are talking more of the loudness of the song or the notes or the sound. Is the sound soft? Is the sound quiet? Is the sound loud? That is what we are talking about when it comes to amplitude. But before, in frequency or pitch, we are talking about the depth. That is the sound low? Is the sound high? So, another property of sound is timbre. Another property of sound is timbre. Timbre refers to the tone, color, or feel of the sound. Sound with various timbre produces different wave shapes, which affects our interpretation of the sound. The sound produced by a piano has a different tone color than the sound from a guitar. Now, when we talk about timbre, that is the quality of a sound that makes a person differentiate between sounds. It makes a person differentiate between a sound from a piano and a sound from a guitar. It also helps someone to differentiate between a voice sound, a human voice, from the instrument voice. So timbre is that quality of music or quality of sound, property of sound that makes us able to differentiate between sounds. Now, we also have duration. Duration can also be called tempo or rhythm. So a music duration is the amount of time that a pitch or tone lasts. They can be described as long, short, or as taking some amount of time. The duration of a note or tone influences the timbre and rhythm of a sound. For example, when we talk about duration, of course, how long is a note? We are talking about how long a note is. For example, if I am to sing a particular note, let's say do. Now I want to hold do for 4 counts. That is a semi-breve count. So I will have do, that's 4 counts. So do, let me go again. We have do. Now, it's different from me holding the same note for 3 counts. So we have do, do. So each note has its own duration. It has the lifespan where it will start and stop. So it can be described as being long or short. That's it about duration. Now, we look at speed, another property of sound. So the speed of sound is distance traveled per unit of time by a sound wave as it propagates through an elastic medium. The speed of sound is how fast vibrations travel, and it depends strongly on temperature as well as the medium through which a sound is propagated. Now let's look at, we want to differentiate between pitched and unpitched sound. But before we go into that, what are pitched sounds? Pitched sounds are sounds that have a specific musical pitch, meaning they produce a sensation of high or low frequency and can be identified as a specific note or tone. For example, a piano playing a C4 note have frequencies of 261.63 Hz. On piano, the C4 note is the middle C, and it has a specific pitch. For some notes, the pitch could be high, the pitch could be low. It could have a low frequency and it could have a high frequency. So let's look at unpitched sound. What are unpitched sounds? Unpitched sounds are sounds that do not have a specific musical pitch, meaning they do not produce a sensation of high or low frequency and cannot be identified as a specific note or tone. Example of an unpitched sound is a drum beat. A drum beat is an unpitched sound, and a cymbal is an unpitched sound. When you are playing your tambourine, it doesn't have a musical note, it's an unpitched sound. Now let's differentiate between pitched and unpitched sounds. Let's differentiate between pitched and unpitched sounds. Of course, pitched and unpitched sounds are two categories of sounds based on their acoustic properties and perception. Now, In terms of frequency and pitch sounds have a specific frequency and pitch, while unpitched sounds do not. In terms of musical use, pitched sounds are used in melody and harmony, while unpitched sounds are used in rhythm and timbre. In terms of production, pitched sounds are produced by vibrating objects, while unpitched sounds are produced by other means. These other means could be striking, it could be blowing. Now, in terms of perception, pitched sounds are perceived as musical notes, while unpitched sounds are perceived as noise or sound effects. Unpitched sounds are perceived as noise or sound effects. Now let's look at the difference between loudness and pitch. Loudness is a property of sound by virtue of which a loud sound can be distinguished from a faint one. Pitch is that characteristic of sound by which a shrill sound can be distinguished from a brave or flat sound. Loudness depends on the amount of sound energy received by the ear in unit time, while pitch is independent of the amount of energy received by the ear. Now, loudness does not change with the change in frequency, but pitch changes with changes in frequency of sound produced. So at this point, we have come to the end of this class. It's been nice having you in class today. It's been nice having you in class. And I don't know if you have any question. If you have questions, you can ask. But in the next class, we will be answering these questions. The first question you should be answering in the next class is, what is sound? You should be able to define sound and tell me one or two things about sound. Then you should be able to mention properties of sound, and explain each of the properties of sound. Then, in the next class, you should be able to differentiate between pitched and unpitched sounds. In the next class also, you should know the difference between loudness and pitch. And finally, in the next class, you should be able to tell me how sound is produced. You should be able to tell me how sound is produced. Then the volume of sound that the human ear can accommodate. So this is ESM 101 piano. Of course, ESM is in line with the vision of Mountaintop University as a center of excellence in music. So the main objective of this course, ESM, is to produce students that will be globally competitive for outstanding impacts and excellence. And of course, in this course, we introduce students to the basic rudiments of music as a strong foundation to build musical knowledge. So every student in musician ESM is an innovation that provides opportunity for all students of Mountaintop University to acquire skills on at least one musical instrument as added value to create additional source of income. Now, in this case, the instrument you have to learn is the piano. So I will be your piano instructor and facilitator. So thank you for being part of the class. See you in the next class. Bye.